Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they stay in an environment that slowly shrinks them. And what's interesting is almost no one grows up saying, I want to be a real estate agent. You grow up wanting to be a pro athlete, a doctor, an entrepreneur, something meaningful, something respected. And yet some of the most fulfilled, impactful people we know have found their way into real estate almost by accident and ended up building a life they never thought was possible. Today isn't about recruiting. It's about recognizing the moment when someone realizes there might be a better container for who I'm becoming. Welcome to the Advisor Podcast. We are real estate wealth advisors here in Hawaii, and our mission is simple: to create plans to build, protect, and pass on wealth through real estate. We believe in providing you with the information and options you need to make a good decision. And today's conversation is especially important because it's for anyone who's ever felt capable of more but unsure where to apply it. Joining us today are two members of the Ihara Team. Kitaoka, one of the top agents on the Ihara Team, has sold more than $100 million in real estate over the past 4 years. He's here today to share his experience and discuss what it really takes to succeed in a fast-paced industry. Also joining us today is Mori, a recent member of the Ihara Team. Ryan is entering his second year in the business and comes from a background in property management and insurance. He'll give us an honest look at what it's like starting a brand new career in real estate if it's everything he thought it would be. Welcome, JJ and Ryan. Thanks for joining the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us, man. We're excited to be here.
Nice. So just to kick things off, what were you guys doing before real estate?
I was doing property management for Colliers here on Hawaii.
Yeah, and I was in hospitality. So I started off kind of as a valet, then kind of worked my way up. Then I was a bellman. But yeah, essentially when COVID hit, kind of had to make a career change.
How long were you guys doing that? And was there a moment where you guys realized like there's a ceiling to this job?
I was doing property management for 2 years. And the moment I realized there's a ceiling was, when they came to me and told me I had a lot of potential and that they wanted to invest in my career. And, they did, by doing so, they, gave me a raise that I think was like $5,000. And, back then it was a total of maybe like $50K my salary. So it wasn't much. And that's when I kind of realized that, wow, I'm going to be working this job until I'm maybe 60 or 70 before I can maybe, start enjoying life at this rate. And that's kind of when I was like, man, maybe I need to find something that is more sustainable for the things I want to do in life.
Yeah, I think for me, it was, it was great working, a tip job, and it was good to kind of go in at 9 and leave at 5 and then kind of leave your responsibilities when you left the job, right? But I think for me, when I started to realize that there was a ceiling, was number one, the cash tips were great, but when you started to really think about it and explore, buying a home, it was hard to get a loan essentially because that's not all on paper, right? But I think another thing I was realizing was, in the hotel industry, you definitely can move up, but there's only a certain amount of GMs or there's a certain amount of managers of front services that can be in a hotel. So, I just figured, although I love that job and I love the people that were there, I just felt like I need a little bit more.
So it sounds like I'm hearing is you weren't claiming all your tips, huh?
For the record, I was. Nah, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
But yeah.
Most people grow up and they want to be a pro athlete or a doctor, an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't grow up thinking, I want to be a realtor, right? So what was the moment that made you guys want to think about real estate as a career?
So to your question, I've always kind of been interested in real estate. Growing up, I've always admired homes. Every time I go to my friend's house, I always be interested on the layout, what it looked like, what it compared to mine. But I never really saw myself in sales for real estate. A lot of my aunties and uncles did, but what got me into real estate was just being able to find purpose in life because my dad loves what he does. So I ultimately wanted to find something that I found passionate for. Real estate not only was able to satisfy me financially, but also gave me purpose, like a reason to do what I do. And it felt good ultimately helping these families find a home or sell their home or, build a plan for the future. So I found that very rewarding. And I do like to talk and make connection with people. So I think that helps on the, relationship side. And that's kind of when I realized that this might be something that's for me. Yeah. Over property management, of course.
Yeah. So how was that different from your property management? You said talk about
I think the
purpose.
biggest difference is, as a property manager, you're the one solving issues. People are kind of yelling at you for issues that are out of your control. Whereas real estate, you're the one coming with a solution. You're the one helping them build the plan. And, your clients look at you as more of like a helper, someone that's guiding them rather than someone that's, evil or someone that's not doing their job, which most, property managers don't get the best reps. So, being on a side where I can help my client, they really appreciate me for doing what we do. That really does make me feel good, and the biggest change or difference. Yeah.
Yeah. Because property management, someone's only coming to you with a problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Only a problem, and it's never your fault.
Yeah. How about you, JJ?
Yeah, for me, I think, when you're going through that question and saying, yeah, when we're growing up, we want to be pro athletes or whatever it may be, that was always my dream, I think, growing up. When people ask me a lot, like, did you always see yourself in real estate? And, to be completely honest, I didn't even really know what a real estate agent was until I moved here for college. Because growing up, I probably couldn't even count on more than one hand how many of my friends have either moved or bought homes. So it wasn't something that was super common. But what actually got me into real estate is actually a funny story. I was working at the hotel and then COVID hit, right? And at the time I was dating Dan and Julie's niece, your cousin, right? But there was a time where we got laid off because there's no tourists coming in, right, to the hotels. So we all got laid off, and it was kind of every day we were just not working, kind of figuring out what am I going to do with my life. And, your mom, Julie, she asked, my girlfriend at the time, she asked, do you know anyone that's in real estate or that would like to be interested in real estate? And, at that time I was like, yeah, tell them I'm interested, but it was a quick no. And it was like, we need someone with experience. And I was like, damn, okay. And then 6 months went by and they asked again, and I was like, please, like, just tell them I'm interested, And then second time again was a straight no. They're like, no, we're looking for people with experience. And then finally they asked again, and I said, please, just like tell them I just want one shot. I'll do what it takes or whatever it may be. Just give me one opportunity, right? And then they finally said, hey, okay, if you take this KPA assessment, which I think is a personality and job fit assessment, I took it, and I don't know, luckily I did well on it. So yeah, they gave me that opportunity, and we're here now. So yeah.
So how long ago was that?
That was about 4 or 5 years ago now. I just made 5 years. So yeah.
Yeah, that's cool to see, because now you're on the other side of the table giving the interviews and interviewing people. So
yeah.
It's a cool flip. So how did you guys find out about the team? Is that something that you guys found online or someone? I know you mentioned that you told, but how did you find out about a team?
So yeah, good question. Similar to JJ, I felt like I was at like a dead end job, as I kind of mentioned before. What company tells you have high hopes for them and then give you like a 5K raise? You're living in Hawaii too, and it's one of the most expensive states. So I thought that was just like silly. But because of that, I was on my lunch break. And I don't smoke, but I was also on one of my 5-minute smoke breaks that you can take, because I was figuring out every opportunity to just get out of the office, because I hated my job so much. So I would spend that time going through like Zillow, or not Zillow, like the job search, like Job Indeed and stuff like that, and seeing what opportunities are out there that I can, maybe hopefully get some experience in real estate and get a job, because I did apply for another team when I first moved back to Hawaii, and I didn't get that job because of experience. So that's why I went to property management. But I knew I knew residential, was lucrative or could be lucrative. So I was on Indeed and I saw, an ad for a listing team manager / assistant. And I saw the description and I was like, oh, I could do that. And I saw the pay and I was like, oh, it's a lot better than what I'm making now. I'm sure if I put my head down and do the work, it'll be favorable. So I applied and the rest was history. It was a extensive process, though, I gotta say.
Well, we're glad to have you on the team.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think a lot of people they watch, Selling Sunset on Netflix and they see, oh my gosh, I have all this flexibility, all this freedom to do what I want to do. Maybe could you share the reality of what it's like to be a real estate agent in the day-to-day?
Yeah. I think, everyone that is kind of interested in real estate, they're like, yeah, I get to make my own schedule and I'll have all this time to do this and to do that. The reality of it is, I think you do get that side of, the perks of having that, but it's also, I think the beauty of being in real estate is it's a direct correlation of how hard you're willing to work, right? Like, for example, when I was in the hotel industry, I could be the best bellman or valet or front service manager or whatever it may be. I could be the best at my job and go above and beyond, but I would be compensated as the same as maybe the person next to me, right? And that may take a little bit of a longer lunch break or may cut corners on certain things. And, I think when it comes down to, what was different and from what you see on TV, it really comes down to you can make as much money as you want to make and you can build the life that you want to build. And it just comes down to how much are you willing to put in and how much you're willing to work.
And I think in addition to that, one thing that I noticed, because I actually did watch Selling Sunset, believe it or not, before I went into real estate, because I was like, I wonder what real estate agents do. And I had no idea, kind of like JJ was saying, what does their day-to-day look like? So I was watching Selling Sunset and I was like, wow, this is kind of what I'm getting into. Like, they all seem kind of very aggressive, it's some shark world. Like, that doesn't, very competitive. If you don't have it, you don't have it. You're not going to go far. It almost seems like you got to have a chip on your shoulder. And one thing I realized joining this team was it's not nothing like that. It's really collaborative. It's, at least on this team, one where everyone helps each other out, even if it's not part of your transaction. That's the one thing that actually really surprised me, was like, wow, these guys are spending time out of their day to walk me through something that doesn't even affect them, let alone their income, and they're really taking the time to walk me through it, splitting the income, even though I just started, maybe not even know what to do, right? So that was something that really surprised me, was the amount of support you can get. Of course, I'm sure there are teams where it's like a dog-eat-dog world, but for this team in particular, I really think that it was completely different than what I saw on Netflix. I was like, wow, this is a family. This is, a team.
Yeah, and I think to piggyback off what he said as well, I think when you're watching these shows and you're watching these reality TV shows, it's like you see just one person, or it's a person with all the rest of their assistants. And I thought that's how real estate was, but when I joined the team, like, there is just so much that you need to learn in order to provide a high level of service. And everyone I speak to now, I'm like, I don't know how my career would have gone or how anyone does it coming in as a solo agent, because it's so hard to get a high producing agent to, number one, take the time to take you under their wing and teach you things. And then ultimately, they're going to assume that you're going to become their competition, right? So that you may not be getting the best out of that mentorship, but, just being on the team, having everyone around us and we can learn from everyone, I think is a big, big benefit to, our success. And, Mori's he's been a rock star since he joined the team, but he's willing to put in the work. And I think that's the biggest thing, right? You just got to be willing to put in the work, and then you'll reap all the benefits later.
Yeah, I think for me, I don't know if I would be in real estate if I wasn't on the team, right? Having the support of you guys, all the mentorship, even the friendship that we get to build on the team. It's really cool to see everyone supporting each other, and we all are in alignment to wanting to help the client and helping each other. So
and the relationship, I like it because it's not just in work, like you said, it's outside of work. We can go golfing together. We talk like friends do. not only coworkers do, but we
okay.
But okay, but yeah, it's great when you can find a team, and like going back to what we're talking about, it's just so different than anything that I expected. I was actually pretty scared coming and joining a team, because I thought, of course, it's not only hard work, but culture-wise, like, am I going to fit? Is it really going to be like this world where if you don't show up and if you're not contributing and if you're, one mistake and you're out? But it's really not like that, so.
being a real estate agent and the process to become a real estate agent and being the day to day, what's something that surprised you the most about what you do?
I think what surprised me the most was the attention to detail. You know, we're representing clients that are paying us money to help them through a transaction, and their assets are worth millions of dollars, right? And I think the thing that kind of surprised me the most was the amount of systems or the attention to detail that you need in order to provide a high level of service. Because I think a lot of us, when you think of a real estate agent, it's like, hey, these people are just here to show you homes and they're here to put a sign in your front door to help you sell the home. But in order to do it effectively, there's so many steps to it. And, you know, we take a lot of pride in making sure that each step is taken care of. And it's not only, and I think a lot of people think it's sales. You know, to be completely honest, I think it's the complete opposite. Right? You're dealing with people and you're going through this process and helping them, guide them through this process when we're not necessarily selling them, right? We're here to protect them. We're here to advocate for them and to walk them through this process. So that's what surprised me the most. I thought it was going to be a very salesy job.
Yeah, it's funny because sometimes we're actually trying to sell our client why you shouldn't buy a home.
True.
Right?
Yeah, true.
Which is kind of
hey,
weird
here's
to
the
think
issues
about.
you need to look out for, and here's what to, you know, so yeah, that was a big surprise to me.
Yeah, like going back to JJ and piggybacking off what he said, you know, like I always thought it was, you know, real estate's a sales. Oh, you want to buy, you want to sell. It's like, oh my gosh, that conversation gets so cheesy, you know, like people always making fun of real estate agents, you know, and I was just like, oh my gosh, do they have like a stigma around them? But, you know, what surprised me on the day to day was the conversations we have. You know, it's not just as simple as you're looking to buy and them saying, yeah, I'm looking to buy, or you're looking to sell. There's a lot more questioning that goes behind the preparation in order to make sure. Of course, there are some agents that, you know, are like JJ said, are just going to say, are you ready to buy? Let's go show you homes. Let's put a sign in front of your house and let's sell it. But what surprised me the most is, you know, to be good at what you do and to serve your client to the highest level of service, there's a lot more that conversations, questioning that takes place to get to that goal. Right. That's not usually seen on the day to day.
Yeah. I think when I first joined, I thought real estate, it's not that deep, but what more could there be to it?
Facilitator.
Right. Then I get in and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to learn about construction. I got to learn about you know, the roofing materials. I got to learn about lending. I got to learn about the purchase contract, how you negotiate. I got to learn about permits. All these things just keep adding and adding and adding. I'm like, holy smokes, there's so much to learn.
Learning something new every day.
Yeah. That's why I'm so grateful to be a part of the team where we can learn from everyone else on the team who's had decades of experience, that they can learn all the things that they've learned over their life. And I can learn that so quickly. And it's definitely helped the trajectory of all of our growths. Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And, you know, to touch on that, I think it's so funny because a lot of our friends are like, you know, why are you always working, or why are you always taking these calls, or why do you always have to do this? And it's like, the general public, I think, doesn't understand how deep and detailed all of these transactions are. So to your point, it's not just about the house and the client. It's about the inspections. How are you going to talk to them about the materials that are in the home? How are you going to talk to them about location? And not only that, then now you have all the legal paperwork that got to be taken care of. So a lot of responsibility as well.
Yeah.
And you're working on their schedule most of the time. You know, they have 9 to 5s, they got kids, you know, and you're trying to balance all that with the other clients you have, and being able to have a system to handle all of this business, right? It's not as easy as most people think it is. You know, they think, oh, wow, you're an agent, you know, it must be nice.
But it is,
I mean, in some ways,
but it is super fulfilling though.
Yeah.
Right. When you go through all that process, it does become fulfilling.
Yeah. I guess on that note, you know, what's something that this career has helped you to see that maybe you didn't see before?
You want to touch on that?
Oh man, that's a good question, man.
You know, for me, I think what it made me open up my eyes to seeing that there's a lot more to life, and it's also, you know, the world is much bigger than we think it is. You know, I think I'm not saying that, you know, coming from where I was or coming from the Big Island, like obviously, yes, it is a smaller town, you know, but I think when I moved here, I started to realize there's a lot more opportunity, and as you start to be around, you know, people, and we meet with people all the time. They're wealthy. They have wealth in real estate and all these types of things. We travel all over the country, right? Training and going to these conventions. And what you start to realize is that, you know, as long as you're willing to put in the work and you know, go through what it takes to be a really, really good agent and represent wealthy people, it really opens up your eyes to see how big the world is and how much opportunity there is to not only make a better life financially, but just to meet new people and to pick their brain on, hey, what are they doing in order to be so successful? And there's just things you don't realize unless you are around those people and have those conversations.
So JJ, how has this career and this environment helped you change the way you think about money and opportunity?
Yeah, I think just kind of what I hit on earlier, before I used to think, when I was working, in the hotel industry, I used to think, man, as long as I can make $100,000, I'll be set. If I can make $100K a year, I'll be comfortable, I'll be set. But, when you start to really put things into perspective, and especially with the cost of goods and things going up, right? I think what it really did change was just my perspective on what is a lot of money, or even when we talk about opportunity or ownership. There's a lot of different levels to it. And there's a lot, much bigger fish in this world, right? And I think what it really did was open up my mindset and my eyes to what could be possible.
Yeah, it's so funny because when we go on these national conventions and we're surrounded by all these other top producing real estate agents, we're in a room with Gary Keller, who's a billionaire, and he's challenging us to think about, we're all thinking, how do we get by? How do we make money? How do you make $1 million is such a big idea. And then he's like, all of you guys, your goal should be to give $1 million every year. And you're like, shoot, how much money do you need to make to give away $1 million a year?
Yeah.
Right. But it's just continuing to unleash the limit of what's possible. Yeah.
Yeah, and adding on to that, especially joining this team, my perspective has changed on, our generation and how, I would say our generation, how much it's or how hard it is to get to home ownership, especially speaking to all of our clients and, how they were able to buy homes. It changes my perspective. They're able to buy homes for 30, 50,000, right? And then nowadays you hear a lot of, people our age and how there's issues with buying a home. But, after joining this team, it really opened up my eyes to, hey, there's a lot of ways where you can help educate the next generation, people our age, especially if they're lucky enough to have family members, with properties, there are ways to help the next generation build wealth, protect it, and transfer it to, through real estate. So that's one thing that really shaped and changed my perspective was home ownership and how, how possible it is that most social media, says it's how unlikely it is,
Yeah. And you get to see it every day, right?
Yeah. Helping families build their, their kids, help them buy their first home. Their guys are helping me buy my first home with, the strategies we use for our clients, with my parents and their properties. So it's just cool to see, the possibilities that weren't, I guess, that I didn't think was possible for our generation or people our age, and just being able to help them and my friends, show them that it's possible.
Yeah, and I think it's not only like Ryan's 100% correct, but I think also it's the opportunities about ownership that comes up when you're a real estate agent or you're in the real estate industry, right? Like the two properties that I purchased, I don't think I would have been able to purchase it, or not alone purchase it, but to even find that opportunity if I wasn't in real estate. It just opened up a lot more opportunity to build wealth through real estate. So yeah.
Understanding how it works, how to do it, even what's the process? People say, "Oh, I want to invest in real estate." What does that even mean? But being on the team, it's like, "Oh, I understand." There's numbers involved. There's a lot more than just saying you want to put in $5,000 into this project or whatever. Yeah.
Let's take a moment. Maybe can you guys share an example or a moment where you realized that you really helped change your client's life? It wasn't just a transaction, but you really impacted their life.
Yeah, man. I think the biggest indicator for me is when I get a nice review. Like they really pour their heart out. And, I even get feedback from like the vendors. Like I had a lender reach out to me and said, after we closed, I spoke to them. They're like, every time they saw a house, they thought it was the most exciting thing. They loved working with you. They thought it was the best experience. And, especially when the client doesn't have a good history with agents in the past, and hearing that you really changed their perspective on their experience on buying homes. And, that was all on you and your experience, that, the service you provided to them. And I think that's like the biggest indicator that, you did a good job and you changed their life, that they're willing to share the word and let everyone know about it, including their friends and families. Yeah.
JJ?
Yeah. I think for me, it's, throughout the process, you become, we like to always communicate well with our clients and always be on top of things. But I think what makes us realize that we're making such an impact is when, for example, we're helping families, right? And they have young kids and we help them buy their first home. And throughout that process, we're spending time with them and we're getting to know them personally. And, at the end of the transaction, now the kids are calling you uncle, or, they're calling you family, and they're saying, we could have never done this without you. I think that's one of the most fulfilling things from this job. But it's also, on the other hand, we help a lot of the senior community, right? Where we help them downsize or relocate to senior communities. And I think that is some of the biggest, fulfilling moments where, there's people that tell us they could have never done it without us, or they didn't even know how to get started. And it's not only them, right? They're not only are they enjoying life in their senior community, but it's their kids. And they're saying, hey, we now no longer have to worry about mom or dad falling and things like that. So that part of it is really, really fulfilling. And we're super grateful to have the opportunity and to be able to help families in that way.
Yeah.
And I think just adding on to it and what we kind of discussed earlier is just looking at this business as more of a service thing than a sales thing. And it really changes the way you feel about your clients, the way you present yourself, the way you come to work. And ultimately that shapes just their experience. I'm sure clients can kind of sense when you're not genuine with them, when you're just trying to get that dollar, get the sale through. And, I think what we pride ourselves is really making that connection and ensuring that, we have a real estate plan that's going to benefit them. And like JJ said, their family members, their kids, the next generation, it just doesn't stop with them, right? We make sure the whole family's taken care of. And I think that speaks volumes in our services.
Yeah, I can remember a moment that I think will be ingrained in my memory for forever is when we helped a family where, they own a property in the North Shore and, it was an investment property and they were getting, 1% rate of return. The husband was complaining that he had to go and cut the grass and he was still working and, he had to work for 5 more years before he could retire. The wife was already retired. So he was like, man, I need to be like that. Right?
Yeah,
so they wanted to be retired together. Yeah. And, we helped him go from an investment property that was at 1%. We helped him do a 1031 exchange, defer the capital gains taxes, and go into an asset that was generating 5% rate of return. They're 5xing their money. And due to that extra passive income that they're getting every month, he was able to retire now instead of in 5 years later. And I just remember him coming up to the team and just giving us all big hugs. And he was able to retire 5 years earlier than he thought was possible.
Yeah.
And I think that was the moment where I was like, wow, we really changed this family's life. Right? They can now go on trips together all the time, hang out with the grandkids and all these things. So
yeah,
absolutely.
I think another thing too is, when we help families create pre-inheritance plans for the kids, a lot of the most common thing is, hey, I put this property in a trust and it's going to get passed to my kids when I pass away. But what we've been working on now is creating pre-inheritance plans for families where now mom and dad can use their investment properties or their assets and bless their children or even grandchildren while they're still alive. And the feedback that we get from the mom and dad is that we actually got to watch our kids and our grandkids enjoy these properties and these assets while we're still here, and to see us help them buy a property or a single family home that they could have never afforded on their own. And now they can see their grandkids playing in the yard or raising their families in the home. So that's another part of it that we really enjoy and I'm grateful for.
Maybe a more direct question, but who do you think should absolutely not get into real estate?
Who should definitely not get into real estate? I think the person that thinks that they're going to make a ton of money and not do a lot of work, this is probably not for them, right? Because, although there's a very low barrier of entry for real estate agents, to become a real estate agent, there's very few that can stick around for a long time. And I think people feel the energy that they're bringing, or they can also see, the work that you're putting in and the type of level of service you provide. So I would say probably the person not to join is the person that thinks it's going to be like selling Sunset, because it's not. It's not like that, right?
And I think someone maybe who just thinks that things are going to get handed to them. This is a job where you have to take initiative And like we've mentioned many times in this podcast, it's the work you put in, it's the work you get out, right? So if you're someone that thinks life is just going to hand you things and you're not really going to have to put in more work than the next person next to you, then yeah, you're not going to last. Also, someone that just focus solely on money, I believe is, of course that's good and that's a good goal. Everybody of course needs to work for financial reasons to make sure they can live. But if that's your only reason for doing your job, that's gonna, passion's not gonna last. Your passion's not gonna last long. So you can maybe get the money at one point, but if you're not getting rewarded or fulfilled doing what you're doing, then it doesn't really, in my opinion, doesn't last. It's not gonna last long. So yeah, I think someone that's just doing it for themselves and very selfish, I may not be the best for them because it's, in my opinion, very collaborative, especially if you want to scale a business.
Yeah, I think most realtors that come into the business, they end up leaving in the first 6 months, the first year.
Yeah.
What's something that maybe has helped you guys to continue to be in the industry and continue to grow in your careers?
Well, that's an easy question for me, and that's being on a team. And I knew that from the start that if I want to be successful in this job, of course I could maybe try to do it by myself as an independent agent, but I just knew there's no way. There's got to be a lot of steps in order to be good at a job like this, where the joke is in Hawaii there are more roaches, or do you know what there are more roaches in Hawaii than there are realtors, right? So it's just like one of those jokes.
I think it's opposite.
There are more realtors than there are roaches in Hawaii, right? So it's just like that kind of stigma. It's like, people just kind of almost look down at realtors like, oh, they have it so easy, blah, blah, blah. But it's just like, that's not the case, man.
I think we're learning something new every day. And, as a person, it helps you grow as well, right? You're learning new things. But I think we hit on a lot. I think we're going to sound like a broken record, but it's the fulfillment and the gratitude that we have in actually being able to serve families. Because like I said, we're not just selling homes, or we're not just helping people buy homes. We're creating, plans and legacy plans and helping them not only get into their home, but making sure that it's the right one for them, right? And protecting their money on the sell side as well.
Yeah, it's so much more than just a buy or a sell.
Yeah. Honestly, I think culture too, like those little things we do every day, I think really goes a long way. Like morning, the morning huddles and stuff like that. I think just having that in place really goes a long way with shaping the new members, making sure this team can survive, not just us as individuals, but the team. We were very team focused. So I think those cultural things, just making sure that everybody gets held to the same standard when it comes to, that kind of thing. I think that goes a long way.
Yeah. And you always make me laugh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a good time.
Yeah, we do.
I think that's another thing too.
You gotta have
right?
good people to work with.
It took us 10 minutes to get this pod going because we just couldn't stop laughing, But I think anyone that's interested in exploring the real estate, environment, you don't need to have experience, right? You can ask me and Mori. We didn't have any experience, but we were able to find success because we're willing to put in the work, we're willing to work hard and sacrifice in the beginning. And I think that is what goes a long way. Because like I said, it's not a salesy job. It's just, you got to make sure you care.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a team willing to train you for no experience.
For sure. Hey, this is the team that hires you without experience. But we like it that way because you don't come in with bad habits. You don't, some people just have their ways. And once you learn it, it's hard to break them. And, if you're new, we're a team that encourages that. And you can learn the right way and learn the system. So anyone out there that's interested in exploring the real estate world or interested in becoming an agent, we're more than happy to have you folks and see if you'd be a good fit.
Okay, last segment. We're going to do a rapid fire. We're going to do alternating questions, 5 questions total.
Okay.
You ready?
Okay.
Okay, JJ, first job ever.
My first job ever, I was a valet at the Trump Hotel.
Ryan, worst job ever.
Worst job was doing landscaping at my university in college during the summer. A lot of bugs.
What kind of bugs?
Bro, spiders, roaches, oh man, and I don't like bugs. Anything that crawls that's smaller than me, I freak out. So that's when I realized that wasn't a job for me. when I went to work and you hear me screaming across campus because a giant spider the size of a quarter landed on my arm,
JJ, what are you shockingly bad at?
Oh man, what am I shockingly bad at? I'd probably say dancing. I mean, I don't think anyone would expect me to be good at dancing, but I absolutely hate dancing. But also, I think not being able to like know when is enough is enough. Like I tend to kind of just keep going and you know, even when it comes down to stuff, it's like we're playing sports or playing simple games. Like I think I get a little bit too competitive sometimes. But
Just
yeah.
like this answer.
Okay. Prime example right here.
One word your friends would describe you as.
Loud.
Agreed. What's a social media trend you still don't understand?
Social media trend, I don't understand. I don't know. There's about 6, 7 of them. I'm not sure.
Okay, we can't do that. That is so cringy.
Wouldn't that be good?
That is so cringy, bro.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining the podcast.
Thanks for having us, man.
Thanks for having me.
I'll see you later. Here's what I want to leave you with. Most people don't need more motivation. They need a better environment. Talent doesn't disappear. Ambition doesn't go away. It gets suppressed when it's placed in the wrong container for too long. Real estate isn't the answer for everyone, and it shouldn't be. But for the right person in the right environment with the right standards, it can become a platform for growth, ownership, and long-term impact. So the real question isn't, should I get into real estate? The question is, am I in a place right now that actually rewards the kind of person I want to become? And if you want to explore what a different environment could look like, that's a conversation worth having. Not commitment, just clarity. Reach out to us on our website, iharateamhawaii.com, or email us at careers@iharateam.com. Thanks for joining, and mahalo.